Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. I asked the woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I counted. Are there more on the way? Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all of the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. The Watcher.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our second podcast of Dr. Morningstar's Unsolved Murders and the Occult, Episode 2, The Violent Winds of Westfield. Tonight, we investigate 2 strange occurrences in the small New Jersey town of Westfield, New Jersey, really? One still remains a mystery, and what is one of the most horrific crimes that has ever happened in American history. We believe all our cases are intertwined, and our last 2 cases have taken place within a 30-mile radius. Our goal here at Dr. Morningstar is to shed light on unsolved murders, and we will also be investigating the occult, aliens, conspiracy, urban legends. like that teacher that got his dick caught in a vacuum cleaner? Yes. We will find out the answer to that.
The peanut butter girl?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the girl that had sex with the hot dog pack?
Yep.
Yes. We
Frozen
will-
hot dog?
Peanut butter babysitter.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Cassie Finley, the
Hello.
producer of the show, and our good friend Lily, which you can see in the corner down there.
Yes,
our
Lily's
haunted
here.
doll Lily is here. Yes. So, folks, we're going to get right into this. We don't waste any fucking time here. Our first chapter is called The Embodiment of the American Nightmare. Okay. So, chapter 1, Embodiment of American Nightmare. What's wrong?
Nothing. I was making sure everything was okay over
Oh, okay. So this is a very, very creepy thing that happened. Scary, vicious, horrible, nightmarish. I can't believe this is real, but on November 9th, 1971, John List shot his wife, his mother, and his 3 children, and then he made a sandwich and ate it in the kitchen while the bodies were still there.
So weird.
And this was just 9 months before the murder of Janetta Palma, which was the last case.
Yeah.
Very strange. John List appeared to be a perfect, normal guy. He wore glasses.
Except he was an accountant. Which,
Husband was an accountant, big nerd. He lived in this huge New Jersey mansion that he inhabited with his wife and 3 kids and his mother. Had 19 rooms, this fucking house. It's like,
Wow.
Like Robin Leach should have been involved in this shit.
Robin Leach.
It had a ballroom, marble fireplaces, and a Tiffany skylight.
Damn.
What is a Tiffany skylight? What is that?
Tiffany's like the Tiffany, like the ring, like the people buy the jewelry.
Oh, so same shit. They make skylights too.
They made lamps
Wow.
and all sorts of shit.
Rings
yeah,
and
fancy
skylights.
1920s bullshit.
So anything that revolves in glass and lights,
Crystal.
they kind of
Yeah.
like that shit. Okay,
Yep.
good job, Tiffany. Is that the same person that sang "I Think We're Alone Now" in the malls? in the
No,
80s? Not the
different
same
Tiffany.
person. Okay.
Nope.
She was in Playboy, by the way. If you want to look that up.
I know, I heard.
List and his family were the embodiment of the American dream. They were in 1965. They attended church every Sunday. Devout Lutherans. I don't know what are Lutherans. What do they believe in?
They believe in Martin Luther,
Is that what it
not
is?
Martin
Okay.
Luther King.
The civil rights. Jesus?
No, different.
All right.
Martin Luther, he was I don't know, he was a philosopher kind of guy. He wasn't. It's I don't know how to explain it. If Brent was here, he could tell us, but he's not.
All right. So Martin Luther, and Listy even taught Sunday school. Everything looked great on the surface with this guy, but it wasn't as it seemed. So in 1971, John List lost his job at the bank at age 46, which is crazy.
But wait, Catalyst. He
Catalyst.
lost his job.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what started it because he had this vision of a perfect life. So subsequent jobs didn't pan out. He couldn't bear to tell his family about the loss of income. That's weird because, like, I guess
Okay,
it was
so
pride.
he buried shit, right?
Yes. and
Like,
it
see,
built
I
up.
get that though. Like, if you mess up, you don't want people to know. Like, you're like not, especially if you live in a mansion and shit like that.
Yeah, because you've shown everybody that you're the successful,
Yeah.
religious,
So if you
good
mess up,
father,
If you mess
Right.
up, then you don't want people to know. So he didn't want to tell anybody.
Right.
Buried it.
it is what it,
Which made it worse.
right, and he didn't want to like let his family down, I guess.
Carried the burden of all that
so when
bullshit.
you don't want to let your
and
family
stress.
down, what you do is you just kill all of them. So he didn't mess. So he spent days at the train. He pretend he was going to work. Tell his family he was going to work. He go to the train station and read the newspaper. And he was secretly stealing money from his mom. He was skimming her bank accounts to pay the bills and the mortgage. It seemed like he was still working.
Okay.
He refused to go on welfare, obviously. He was a prideful man, as it would entail excruciating embarrassment to the community and violate the principles of self-sufficiency that he learned at his father's knee. Different time, guys.
Yeah, seriously.
We don't learn those values anymore, but that's
Try
a good
to.
and bad thing.
Try to instill them, but
It's hard to believe the solution he arrived to would have been more acceptable to his father, but John List would later say it seemed like to him the only option, the murder of his mother, wife, and children. That seems like a crazy option to me. I don't know.
This is like the only option.
He just went to like Vegas.
He
and, like,
said
just get
he said that
bombed.
like he was trying to get them into heaven. That's how he would get them into heaven.
And that was
they
the answer?
they wouldn't be shamed because they lost their money and they were losing their house.
Jesus Christ.
What a fucking loony, man.
What a tightly wound era this was. I'm not
Damn.
saying everybody was like this, but this is what that era kind of like produced, I guess. One day in late 1971, John List shot and killed his wife, Helen, his 16-year-old daughter, Patricia, his 15-year-old son, John, and his 13-year-old son, Frederick, and his mother, Alma, age 85. The only one I'm okay with is the 85-year-old. He was going to go anyway. They were shot methodically one by one. Helen was first. List saw the children off to school and then shot her in the kitchen as she sipped her customary morning coffee. Evil. Then he went up to the third floor.
Dude, that's so wrong.
Right.
Like, if you're gonna kill me, don't kill me when I'm drinking coffee.
Right.
What the fuck?
Jesus. I mean, I guess you're taking me out of some kind of misery because it's the morning. Like, thank God.
No,
I'm
but
dead,
like,
now
I
can sleep again.
enjoy drinking my coffee in the morning. Like, you're gonna kill me then? What the fuck, man? What an evil asshole.
Well, that's true. It's the only satisfaction you get in the morning. Then he went up to the third floor and murdered his mother in bed. Ugh. He killed Patricia, his daughter, when she returned home from school.
That's nice.
Then the youngest son, Frederick, he made himself a sandwich at this point, which is crazy. And not that it really matters, but I'd love to know what kind of sandwich that was. He closed out his
I want
bank.
to say, okay, so he's a weird dude, right?
Yeah.
It was probably something
Gabagool.
like no. It was probably
Jersey.
No, he's not Italian. List is not Italian.
No, what is that, Dutch?
He probably made liverwurst.
Ew, I would picture him as a liverwurst guy.
Right?
Yes, totally.
Like
I totally
American
believe.
cheese and liverwurst with
Yes!
mustard.
Oh my God.
100%.
You're like the sandwich whisperer. I can totally picture
I
that's
bet
his
you
sandwich.
that's what he ate on rye bread.
Oh my God, I totally believe that.
Totally made it.
Liverwurst
Brown
and
mustard,
cheese. Oh.
American cheese, liverwurst, and on rye bread.
Now, anytime I go
Legit.
back and I hear about this motherfucker ever again, I'm going to think of your sandwich that you
That's the
described. for him.
sandwich, though, for real. Like, that's what it is. Because if you think about the time frame, right? And, like, what people ate then, like, I know this because Fred was a big liverwurst fan.
Ugh,
and I think
God.
List, I want to say List is like Germanic, something like that. Like a Germany kind of name.
Well, I guess because
and you think
Germans love
okay,
lists.
wait,
You go in the list?
No, listen.
Step into the shower.
That's not what I was thinking of. His mother's name is Alma. That's a German name, I believe.
It is.
So I think he was like German. Or
Wait. His mother's name was on my list.
Alma List. Amazing. But anyway, so I'm like, you know, that's a German thing. Liverwurst is a German thing. So I kind of really picture a liverwurst thing. Like, and people ate that way back then. Like, we don't eat that now. No one eats that now.
What was their obsession with Jello too? They would like gelatin everything.
Aspic.
Ugh.
It's making a comeback too. I'm not making
Oh,
Jello.
God.
I'm not making Jello meat. Like, fuck you guys. I'm not doing that shit.
Who's bringing that back? Send John List over.
Nazis. That's who's bringing it back.
Now, this is the most creepy murder that he did. So after he made a sandwich, he closed out his bank accounts, as I said, and cheered for his. And went to go pick up his only son John at his high school soccer game. He went and watched the soccer game, gave him a ride home, and then as soon as they got home, he shot him in the chest.
What the fuck? Thanks, Dad.
It's terrible. It's
He's like, great,
horrible.
good game. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. No,
You
I
didn't
really
get that goal? Boom.
Right.
Fuck. Pay something better than soccer. Boom.
You're no Pele. Oh, no. John List laid the bodies of his family members on top of sleeping bags in the
That's
ballroom.
creepy.
We have a picture of that that's flashing up
Yeah.
there.
And if you guys saw the preview earlier, there was pictures of it too. In there.
Yes. Then composed a note to his pastor. This is why you can tell he's fucked up. That who he felt would understand.
Yeah.
No, you didn't have sex with a young boy, dude. You killed your family.
Dear Pastor Mike, please understand. I just murdered my whole family and ate a liverwurst sandwich and mustard.
And cheese.
Sincerely, John List.
American cheese.
On rye bread.
On rye bread. They probably cut it in half.
No, he totally cut in half, but
yes.
diagonal.
Yes, and it was probably like perfectly cut in half.
Oh yeah, no, and like that sandwich, he had to make sure he licked all the crumbs off the sandwich,
Yes.
off his plate because like he's a freak.
Such an asshole. And then he
Had milk with it too. I bet he had milk.
Yeah, he's like a milk drinker, right?
Right?
Liverwurst and milk. I've murdered people too. He feared his family, confronted with a world full of evil and poverty, would turn from God. This was the only way to ensure their safe arrival in heaven. He was not, however, willing to suffer the earthly consequences of his actions. Of course not.
No.
He's insane. In an effort to baffle the police, which is not
took
hard
off.
in New Jersey, he cleared the crime scenes and used scissors to remove the image from every photo in the mansion. You can tell this was a long time ago.
Scissors.
He didn't have a Facebook. Scissors. Imagine John List's Facebook.
Yes.
Fans of liverwurst.
Don't call us. My family's not home anymore.
Warm murdered milk.
Ew.
He canceled all deliveries and contacted his children's schools. He wrote his kids' schools a letter saying they're going on vacation, so they wouldn't.
What the actual fuck, dude?
So they wouldn't, think that there was anything wrong that they weren't there.
Dude, what?
And then before
this guy's unhinged.
he is before he left the house with all the bodies in the house, he turned on the lights and the radio, leaving religious hymns playing in the house.
Ew, that's fucking creepy. That's creepy. Ew, those poor cops that found that shit, dude.
And he also slept in the mansion where his family was dead.
Why?
And then walked out the door the next morning.
What is wrong with this guy?
And he wasn't seen again.
Liverwurst.
Yes, he wasn't seen again for 18 years.
Well, because he fled to Florida or some shit, right?
Went to a different state. I have this on my notes here somewhere.
Hold on, I have it.
Yeah, I mean, a month passed before neighbors, curious about the constantly burning lights and empty windows, began to suspect something was wrong at the List mansion. When authorities entered the Westfield, New Jersey house on December 7th, 1971, wow, that's almost to the date here.
Did not, yeah.
They heard organ music piped through the intercom system.
Oh.
They also found the 5-page note from John List explaining
probably
that the
smelled.
bloodied
They
bodies
probably smelled it first. That's probably the reality of it.
smelled fantastic, a horse crotch.
Blech.
On the ballroom floor, where his family members killed out of mercy, he had saved the souls of the people he loved. The FBI found his car parked at Kennedy International Airport in New York City, but they never found him.
He fled to
The
Colorado,
trail
by the
went
way.
cold.
Colorado.
Not
Florida. I don't know. I just think all weirdos go to Florida.
So it's very clever how they found this fucking dude. So this was 18 years later, fast forward.
Right, 89.
Yes.
Yeah.
An expert forensic artist named Frank Bender, great name, created a physical bust of John List as Bender imagined he might have aged. This is before the internet, people. Bender gave him a hawk nose, grizzled eyebrows, and horn-rimmed glasses. What's with horn-rimmed glasses and fucking people that
What
kill
is
people?
with glasses and people that kill people?
I don't know what that is.
Thank God I wear contacts now. Shit.
Yeah, right? Thank God I can fucking see.
Maybe that's the problem. You can't fucking see.
It's like
Fucks with your brain.
fucking nerds. They're killing everybody.
Damn nerds.
Psychologists theorized that List would wear the same spectacles he wore as a younger man to remind him of more successful days.
Oh my God.
I heard to wear nerd glasses to remind me of more successful days.
Let me go to Pearl Vision and get the fancy looking glasses. Back when I was a millionaire and I lived in a mansion before I killed my family.
The only glasses I like are the ones with the horn and the nose and the mustache. I like those. Those are cool. It was a masterful deception of John List, a masterful deception. When America's Most Wanted aired, the story of John List murders on May 21st, 1989, an audience of 22 million saw Frank Bender's sculpture. Tips came pouring in. They caught John List.
Yeah, a neighbor called in.
Yes, a neighbor called in. That's the fucking dude.
That's that nerd that lives down the street.
That's that liverwurst eating fucking nerd.
They were like, this is what he looks like. May smell like liverwurst.
I know, right? Jesus.
Maybe
They
seated
smell like liverwurst.
Maybe seated in the liverwurst section of the supermarket.
Probably had like liverwurst
Beware.
cologne. Let me dab some on here, murder my daughter, and now I'm off.
Oh my God. Watch out. Watch the meat section. Look for a guy buying liverwurst with hormone glasses. That's the guy. Look at him. Look at his eyebrows.
That's something like religious guys would say if they were like on a date making out with a girl. I'd be like, watch the meat section. No.
Oh my God. Well, he was married too. He
got remarried.
Changed his name.
Some
All
fat
sorts of
chick.
fucking shit.
Yeah, and he got remarried. And look, John List died in prison, thank God, in 2008 at age 82. That's too good for him. He should have died viciously, got in a chair or like stabbed in prison like Dahmer. It kind of sucks that he just went peacefully in jail.
Yeah.
And I watched his interview. There's interviews on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out. The John List interview. They interviewed him on TV, and the way he talks is creepy. Like he still doesn't remorse or think what he did was bad. He still thinks what he did was righteous. What
weirdo.
Piece of shit.
He's dead. He's dead.
Thank
It's
God
okay.
he's dead. So we did that story first just to build up, the story of Westfield, New Jersey, and what originally happened there to kind of, I think, turn this town into
there's
what
some
it is.
weird shit.
Some weird shit going on in this town.
Weird shit in that town, man.
So we're gonna get into our next story here. It's Chapter 2, Dearest New Neighbor. Yo, all right. So on one night on June 2014, Derek Brodus had just finished an evening of painting at his new home in Westfield, New Jersey, when he went outside to check the mail. Derek and his wife Maria had closed on the 6-bedroom house.
Jesus.
Not as good as John List. He had a 13-bedroom house.
Yeah, John List way
with
better.
a Tiffany skylight.
They obviously didn't eat liverwurst.
At 657 Boulevard 3 days earlier, and were doing some renovations before they moved in, so there wasn't much in the house except for a few bills and a white card-shaped envelope. It was addressed in thick, clunky handwriting to the new owner, and the note inside said the following. You know what, Cassie? You have a sweet voice. Why don't you just read that letter for everybody there? This is what the letter said in that.
I have a sweet voice. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. Signed, The Watcher.
Ugh. Okay, so that's kind of started it all off. And now for the Broduses, buying this 657 Boulevard was a fulfilled dream. Maria, his wife, Maria Brodus, was raised in Westfield. Just a few blocks down. This house was a few blocks down from a childhood home. Derek grew up in working class in Maine, then moved his way up the ladder in an insurance company in Manhattan to become a senior vice president with a salary large enough to afford this $1.3 million house. Jesus.
What year was this?
Go ahead.
What year was this again?
This was 2014.
So now it would probably be like a $3-point-something million
about
house.
that. That's right. The Broduses had bought 657 Boulevard just after Derek celebrated his 40th birthday. And see, everything goes backwards when you turn 40, I swear to God. And there are
Everything turns terrible.
Yes, it does. And their 3 kids were already debating which of the house's fireplaces Santa Claus would use. I remember when I used to...
How many fucking fireplaces does this thing have?
Lots. I don't know. It doesn't say a number. Probably 5. Wait, there maybe
How many
3?
bedrooms? 6 bedrooms.
6 bedrooms.
So maybe 3.
3 fireplaces. But as Derek kept reading the letter from his new neighbor, and the more he thought about it, the more concerned he got. The Arthur's Renaissance had apparently already begun. The letter identified the Brodus' Honda minivan as well as the workers renovating the home. Earlier in the week, Derek and Maria had gone to the house and chatted with their new neighbors, while their children, who were 5, 8, and 10, ran around the backyard with several kids from the neighborhood.
Oh, so they were like young compared to like what they showed them on in the show.
Yeah, and that TV show that on Netflix, they showed them as teenagers. It was after 10 p.m. and Derek Brodus was alone. He raced around the house, turning off the lights, and no one could see inside. He called the Westfield police, who are turds. An officer came to the house, read the letter, and said, "What the fuck is this?" He asked Derek if he had enemies and recommended moving a piece of construction equipment from the back porch in case the watcher tried to toss it through the window.
Jesus.
I guess this is where, I guess if you're a police officer, it's kind of like, how do you really respond to this? Because there's nobody to go after, right? You can't arrest anybody. I mean,
yeah, but why? Okay, hold on. My brain is working right now in a weird way.
Okay.
Why would the cops suggest and even think that this guy was going to get violent and throw something through a window?
Unless they knew something.
That's what I'm saying.
Unless they knew something, which leads into one of my theories. Derek rushed back to his wife and kids who were living at their old home. Now, this is very important. They were never lived in this house.
No.
They bought it and they were renovating it, but they never lived in it.
So if you guys watched the show, they never lived there. They didn't live there. Like in the show, they show them like they moved in, whatever. They never moved in. No. They didn't get to that point because they started getting letters and they were like, fuck this, we're not moving in there. Right.
So, but then, so one night, Derek and Maria, so like, this is what I would do. I'd go to the previous owners and see if they got letters. So the previous owners were named John and Andrea Woods, and they're the ones who sold in the house.
Yeah.
They asked anything about if they ever got any letters, and the Woods said they did get a letter, but they kind of passed it off as like nonsense. They didn't really say, it was just a letter. You know, they thought it was kind of odd, but didn't really like, think it was anything to worry about.
Right.
So So they made mention of a similar watcher's family observing the house over time. Andrea received. Oh my God, I'm trying to get my place. So anyway, they kept talking to the detective in town, which is Detective Leonard Lugo, and he said not to tell anybody about the letters. Why is that?
Why?
Including the new neighbors, which is
bad
weird.
press. Bad press.
Right. Most of whom they had never met. The Broduses spent the coming weeks in high alert. Derek canceled a work trip. And whenever Maria took the kids to their new house, she would yell their names if they wandered into a corner of the yard, which is actually important to the next letter.
Right.
When Derek gave a tour of the renovation to a couple on the block, he froze when the wife said, "It'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighborhood," which was going to be on one of the letters.
Right.
The Broduses' general contractor arrived one morning to find that a heavy sign he'd hammered into the front yard had been ripped out overnight. Well, that's not too crazy.
Yeah, but that kind of points to the theory that it was somebody in the neighborhood that was mad about them living there.
So you lean towards that. I agree. 2 weeks after the letter arrived, Maria stopped by the house to look at some paint samples and check the mail. She recognized the thick black lettering on a card-shaped envelope and called the police. Let's go to letter 2.
Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy. I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found out what is in the walls yet? In time they will. I'm pleased to know your names now and the names of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often. 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. I noticed one of your children using an easel. Is she the artist in the family? Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is very far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedroom facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I passed by...
All right, so that was letter 2. There's a little bit more to that, but that's okay.
Sorry, guys. I thought that was the end.
So
My fault.
This time the Watcher had addressed Derek and Maria directly, misspelling their names as Mr. and Mrs. Braddis.
Yeah.
Had the Watcher, so this is probably what he heard their names are. So he's gonna believe. I don't think it's part of like any real estate company or even the Woods, as far as that's concerned, because they would know their names. Had the Watcher been close enough to hear one of the Broduses' contractors addressing them? Probably. The Watcher boasted of having learned a lot about the family in the preceding weeks, especially about their children, which is the creepiest part.
But here's the other thing. Isn't that public record who buys houses and stuff? Like, the internet was around. Couldn't they have, like, looked it up?
Yes. Yeah, at that point, yes. That's very true. So they'd be able to know their name. Maybe the guy's just, maybe he misspelled it on purpose.
Maybe, or maybe he just couldn't spell.
Maybe he misspelled it on purpose just to throw them off the tracks. Or maybe he just couldn't spell. You're right, yeah. The letter identified the Broduses' 3 kids by birth order and by their nicknames. The ones Maria had been yelling. I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me, it said. You certainly say their names often. The letter asked about one child in particular whom the writer had seen using an easel inside an enclosed porch. Is she the artist of the family? Now, that would have really creeped me out.
That would have really fucking creeped me the fuck out, dude.
Once it gets into
but
the kids
that
part
means that it's somebody in the area. Like, I don't think it was somebody sitting outside their house. I think it was somebody, like, in the area.
I think it was somebody in the area, too.
If it was somebody outside of the family.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Like, if it was somebody outside of the family, then it's somebody that was in the area. It wasn't some rando that was, like, driving by.
No. He knows too many details.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe it was one of the contractors.
Or the cops.
Yeah, that's a possibility, too. So, but the cops would probably know how to spell the last name, though. Derek and Maria...
Or they might have done that on purpose, like you said.
Right. Derek and Maria stopped bringing their kids to the house. They were no longer sure when or if they would move in. Several weeks later, a third letter arrived. Letter 3.
657 Boulevard is missing you. The house is crying from all of the pain it is going through. You have changed it and made it so fancy. You are stealing its history. It cries for the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed the halls. The 1960s were a good time for 657 Boulevard, when I ran from room to room, imagining the life with the rich occupants there. The house was full of life and young blood. Then it got old, so did my father, but he kept watching it until the day he died. And now I watch and wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again.
Built in. So this house, I mean, like, what
Well, he
got me?
said 110th year, right?
Right,
So it
so-
was 2014. So it was 1904.
1905, actually. The house was
okay.
built. This got me into the history of the house. So once I saw this letter, I got into the history. So, it was always the grandest home on the block.
Right.
Everybody said.
Which is probably why she aspired to live there, because she lived in Westfield.
Right.
Would drive past it, see how big it was.
Well, she
and
knew the
awesome.
house since she was a kid.
Right.
Maria.
That's what I'm saying. When she was little.
Right, and they received the Woodses, the previous owners, received multiple offers on the house. That led the Broduses to initially suspect that the watcher might be somewhat upset over losing out on the house.
Right.
I think that often, actually.
Right.
But the Woodses said one interested buyer had backed out after a bad medical diagnosis, which is weird. While another,
yeah, a little weird.
Yeah, while another had already found a different home. In an email to the Broduses, Andrea Woods proposed another theory. She has a lot of theories, this broad.
Yeah, that's kind of weird too.
With the mention of the contractor trucks and your children suggest that it was someone in the neighborhood.
Right.
Really? How'd you deduce that,
Wow.
fucking genius?
Good job, Sherlock Holmes.
Jesus Christ. Put her on every case.
Damn. Old case Andrea.
What's her name?
Woo!
Woods Captain
Andrea
Obvious?
Woods.
Yeah, Captain Obvious.
Detective.
Whoever scores the most points wins. The letter did indicate proximity. They had been processed in Kearney, New Jersey, the
Okay.
U.S. Postal Services Distribution Center in northern New Jersey. The first was postmarked June 4th before the sale was public. Interesting. The Woodses had never put up a for sale sign. And only a day after the contractors arrived, the renovations were mostly interior, and people who lived nearby said they didn't notice an unusual they didn't notice an unusual commotion, even from the jackhammering in the basement. When Derek and Maria walked Detective Lugo, this douche, around the house, they showed him the easel on the porch was hidden from the street by vegetation, making it difficult to see unless someone was behind the house or right next door. Very important.
Yes.
Frustrated, the Broduses began their own investigation. Derek became especially obsessed. He set up webcams on 657
Wireboards.
Boulevard and spent nights crouched in the dark.
Was he a Gemini?
I don't know. He might have been. I think he sounds like one. Watching to see if anyone was watching the house at close range. Maria thought I was crazy. He told me recently at a coffee shop in Manhattan, which he covered the table with documents relating to the case, including copies of the letters, which he and his wife had shared with only a few friends and family members. He showed a map displaying what each of 657's neighbors had moved in. Jesus.
Oh my God.
The
He's
la-
a Gemini.
The la-
100%.
He does research like you.
Yep.
The Langfords were the only ones there since the 60s, which overlays make it possible because the watcher mentioned the 60s being
right.
in the house.
Yep.
So Langfords would, and they're also in earshot because they're next door, so they would know that the daughter was playing with the easel.
Were they the family that was portrayed in the show that were like the crazy brother and sister?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were the crazy brother and sister. The Broduses also turned to several experts. They employed a private investigator who stalked out the neighborhood and ran background checks on the Langfords, but didn't find anything noteworthy. Derek reached out to former FBI agent who served the inspiration for Khalees starring in The Silence of the Lambs. Wow.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I read that too, and I was like, what? I was like, really, Clarice? Like,
This
damn.
guy, I think, spent more money in the investigation than the
I think he did
house.
too.
That's crazy. That guy
He
can't
just
be
had
cheap.
money to fucking burn, dude.
I know. This guy is nuts.
That's no wonder why the house needs to be sold.
They also hired Robert Lenahan, another former FBI agent, Jesus, to
Damn.
conduct a threat assessment.
I didn't know you could just hire FBI agents.
Me neither. What's like? Is there like a Yellow Pages for that or
Craigslist.
former FBI? Yeah, Craigslist. I want a gay blowjob and an FBI agent.
Craigslist.
Lenahan recognized several old-fashioned ticks in the letters
Yes.
that pointed to an older writer.
Yep.
The envelope was addressed M/M.
Yes.
Broadus.
Which is an M, which is a old person like thing.
Right, and the salutations also included the day's weather, warm and humid, sunny and cool for a summer day.
Yeah.
And the sentences
That's an old person thing.
Right, the sentences
Right.
that double spaces between them. letters had a certain literary panache. I don't know what that is.
Panache.
Panache.
Like an eloquence.
Okay, so, I don't have any literary panache, obviously. So
Panache.
we suggested a
Fragile.
Panache.
It must be Italian.
What Indian tribe used to be here? I don't know, the fucking Panaches. And a surprising lack of profanity given the level of anger which Linehan thought meant a less macho writer. Interesting. Yay.
I have a theory about. I have something to add to that shortly.
Maybe he wondered the Watcher had seen The Watcher, starring Keanu Reeves, the serial killer who stalks a detective trying to catch him. Yes, I never saw that movie.
Me neither.
I wasn't a big Keanu fan
Was
after
that
1991.
went straight to DVD? Like,
I think it may have.
because I've never heard of it.
Keanu Reeves made like Point Blank, and just like his career went Point Blank for a while, and he didn't get famous again until he made what's that?
The Matrix?
No. Well, The Matrix. Yes,
John
I'm
Wick?
sorry, The Matrix, and then John Wick, and whatever. Now he's big again. But okay, so we're gonna come back with our suspects, but before we do that, we're gonna take a little intermission. Take a little break. We'll be back in a couple minutes, and we're getting into the suspects of this case and our theories, and wrap it all up. All right, motherfuckers. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
At 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. The stately 3,900 square foot home boasting 6 bedrooms, 4
February,
baths.
shortly after the Broaduses started renting the house to tenants, a fourth and apparently even scarier letter has arrived. This according to a new brief filed in the lawsuit.
In the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Why are you here? I will find out.
What letters, Bill, frightened a young family, the Broaduses, into filing suit after scrambling in fear from the dream home they'd only just bought? That home, 657 Boulevard, sits silent, as do local officials such as Westfield.
Now with a new threat from the stalker known as the Watcher, who's been haunting the owners of the New Jersey home, sent a new letter as well. Their lawyer says this one is more sinister than the others.
Their dream home, but as soon as they bought it, they say they started receiving menacing letters like this. All of the windows and doors allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house, and I watch and wait for the day the young blood will be mine again. After receiving the threat in an interview with New York Magazine last year, Derek comparing the ordeal to cancer, saying we think about it every day.
They wanted to get rid of the house because they knew it was going to be this burden. They knew they weren't going to move in. From there, the next thing they want, more than anything, is to know who did this.
All right, welcome back, people. Thank you for hanging on. I had to take a piss you wouldn't believe. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the suspects of this
Such
case.
panache you have.
I have such literary panache. All about it.
Panache.
So we've kind of mentioned the suspects as we go along here. I've actually thought of a couple new ones, but and Cassie.
Well, I have a
Brian,
few. I have a few.
So one of the main ones that was mentioned was Michael Langford, who was a next door neighbor.
Yeah, the weirdo.
At one point, Derek Brodus was chatting with John Schmidt, who lived 2 doors down, when Schmidt told him about the Langfords who lived between them. Peggy Langford was in her 90s, and several of her adult children, losers, all in their 60s, lived with her.
Ew.
The family was a bit odd, really, Schmidt said, but they were harmless. He described one of the youngest Langfords, Michael, who didn't work and had a beard like Ernest Hemingway and kind of a Boo Radley character.
Boo Radley, yeah.
Derek thought the case was solved because he's retarded. The Langford house was right next to the easel on the porch. The family had lived there since the 1960s, when the Watcher's father originally said that, you were in the house in the 60s.
Right.
So the family patriarch, the Richard Langford, the family patriarch, had died 12 years earlier, and the current Watcher claimed to have been on the job for the better part of 2 decades. So everything leads to this guy. This guy, Michael Langford. I mean, he's a suspect. I'm not telling you a theory, but it's very logical that he would be the guy, actually. When the Broduses told Lugo about his family, He said he already knew, and a week after the first letter arrived, he brought Michael Langford to police headquarters for an interview. Michael denied knowing anything about the letters, but Brodus said Lugo told him that the narrative of what he said matched things mentioned in the letters. And Lugo argued with him. He said, "This isn't CSI, Westfield. When the wife is dead, it's the husband." So I don't even know. So, but Michael Langford is definitely a suspect there. Yes. But the police really investigated him, if they really investigated him, and like kind of deduced that he was not the guy, not the watcher. Excuse me. Another suspect is a young male neighbor. Now they actually addressed this in the Netflix show too. But there was a young male neighbor on the block who, according to his girlfriend, played dark video games as a character called the Watcher. Yep. His girlfriend was seen stopped in front of 657 Boulevard at 11 p.m. one night, and the boyfriend twice agreed to come in for an interview with the detective, but never showed up. So that's kind of weird right there. The next one is the Broduses themselves.
Right.
This is a popular one, actually.
Really popular, and makes a lot of sense.
I mean, was he orchestrating this whole thing because he spent $1.3 million and realized he made a mistake? And was the Watcher just
because they were also saying, too, that these people were not, they were not millionaires. Like, their previous house cost, like, $300,000 or something like that.
No, they were pure Beltle Avenue.
Then they moved into a $1.3 million house from a $300,000 house. Like,
right.
Why? Like, what happened? And in this show, they, touch on... they go into oh, well, he was supposed to get a partnership and he didn't, and he thought he was getting a partnership and that's why he bought the house.
Right.
I mean, who knows if that's real? Who knows if that might be the situation? Like, he thought he was going to make more money and then he didn't end up making more money and then,
and he felt almost as John List felt.
Right.
He's helpless.
Right.
But instead of murdering his family, he became the Watcher.
Right.
So that is a popular theory.
Yeah.
He did it as a hoax. And at one point, he wanted to demolish the home, split the lot, and build two homes. 67 feet was the legal space you could have between homes.
Yeah.
And he was 66 feet, and they denied him or something like that. So
didn't
another house was built, and it was it was less than that, and they approved.
They
that.
approved it, and didn't he write letters to other neighbors too at some
point? And he did, as you say that letter 4. They received a 4th letter.
7 Boulevard is turning on me. It is coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend, and now it is my enemy. I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass and for you to bring the young blood back to me. 657 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing it and let it...
Okay. So
which is funny because if you look at that letter, it's totally not like the other letters at all.
No.
The writing style is totally different. It's
right.
more threatening. He mentions certain things that the other letters mentioned, but it's not as eloquent. The other ones were very long-winded.
Right.
This was a short little thing.
It was direct and
right.
Threatening.
Right.
And he actually admitted
to that.
He wrote the letter.
And he wrote it to how many people?
All the neighbors.
All the neighbors, right?
Yes, he admitted he wrote the letter. I don't know how many neighbors it was. Most of the neighbors he wrote it to. Just so try to get them on their side, or I don't even know, but
to not implicate, try to oh, well, other people are getting letters.
Yes,
Yeah.
right, exactly. To kind of help his case because he was going nowhere.
Right.
So him writing a letter kind of leads the little guilty verdict there, but there's other suspects I want to talk about. There was 2. I tried to look the information up as far as the names are concerned. I couldn't find anything, but there were 2 child sex offenders who lived in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Which is weird. They're not in the top of my list, but I just want to mention that out there. There was a backyard neighbor. This was showed in the show. Great job. I'm a fucking literary Panacci. A backyard neighbor who was seen sitting in a lawn chair facing the Brodus house, watching every day.
Right.
That's creepy right there. The police, which is a popular theory, were the police covering up? The police not want them to live there? Was it almost like what did we say? It was like not a Wicker Man. I guess it was kind of like a Wicker Man type thing, but where the neighborhood. The
burbs.
Hot Fuzz. The Burbs?
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz, too. They kind of like a weird thing where they just didn't want these people there.
Right.
And other interesting theory is one of Maria Brodus grew up there, was one of her ex-jealous boyfriends. You know, that's another possibility out there.
Well,
That's
they touched on some in the show too, and there actually was a couple. Well, first of all, you know, it could be. Now I know like there's no real evidence about this, but it could be the realtor that sold in the house, thinking they could flip it and get more money.
Well,
if they sold
that's
it.
a theory in the show too. Yeah.
Right, and then there is an actual theory in the show that was real, where there was a guy, a professor in real life. His name was Robert Kaplow. I forget what his name was in the show, but he started this thing in in the 80s or whatever.
Ode to
90s,
a House.
Ode to a House. That's real.
Yeah.
Like he started.
I didn't know that was real.
No,
Was
it
it
is.
real?
His name's Robert Kaplow. He's a professor, and he started writing letters to the house. And his brother was actually a lawyer. And they thought like, oh well, you know, like his brother's a lawyer, like like they're, you know, like they're involved. And his brother's like, there's no like anything to this. Like the guy was writing letters, nice letters. It wasn't like weird, creepy letters.
That's interesting.
So,
That's
but
very
he was an
interesting.
actual real person, that guy.
Oh wow, okay. I thought it was just made up for the show.
But I will tell you this, and I'm going to blow your mind really quickly. Recently, they did DNA evidence on the letters. Recently, after the show aired or while the show was airing or whatever on Netflix, and discovered that the person that licked the envelopes was a woman.
Oh, that is very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking right there, Cassie.
So it could have been that Peggy, whatever woman,
The mom there.
right?
Yes.
Like he could have been writing the
Peggy
letters, and she
Langford.
could have like helped him send them, or
Wow.
you know, which kind of like kills the Brodus theory, unless Maria was doing it,
Yes. Yeah. Unless Maria was doing.
or
that's
they
another
were
twist.
in on it, you know, like in.
Maybe Maria. I mean, I'm gonna get into theories in a minute, so I don't want to get too far into this. But that's very, very interesting, Cassie. You brought up two great suspects right there. So now that I'm getting all excited about it, we got to get into our theories. And
Sorry.
before I jump ahead of myself here, so we're gonna get into our theories. I want to start us off with letter 5. They got a final 5th letter. This is letter 5.
Violent winds and bitter cold. To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me. One of those so-called neighbors who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and you are too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watch from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher! Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break.
All right.
See that last letter though, like
Yeah.
is totally different than any other fucking letter.
I agree. So was it him again?
I don't know.
Yeah,
like
was it
it's
this guy again?
it's like
That last one was the most violent. Like it
Yeah,
was
it's
very
violent.
Like I want you to. I'm gonna kill your pet. I'm gonna poop
Make
on
you
your
sick
mom.
and fucking-
Yeah.
crash into shit.
No, it's nuts. Yeah, that last one's crazy. So we get into our theories here, and you know, like my ultimate theory on this whole thing is you know, the gamer thing I think is very legitimate. I mean, this guy was playing violent video games. His name was the Watcher. His girlfriend was caught outside of the house, but I think maybe she was caught outside of the house after this whole thing hit the news. So then I was thinking, nah, she probably just went there because and a gamer's really lazy. You don't think he's gonna write a letter?
lazy. No,
And
no, they probably don't even need. I mean, like, dude, how many young kids? Okay, not even a gamer. How many young kids? How old was he? Like 20?
It's like 20 years old.
They don't
Right.
write letters.
They don't even know what a letter is. They don't. If it's not typing or an email.
Or texting.
They would have
like,
been creepy emails if it was.
he would have texted,
Right.
right?
Yes, I believe he would have texted.
Right.
Yeah. So and you know, and a lot of it is leads me to believe the Langfords, especially the female thing that you just said.
Yeah.
But my ultimate theory on this whole case is it was an inside job. I think Derek and Maria were both in on it. I think the what you said of Lincoln Leather was Maria. I think they bought this house maybe out of like an instinct real quick, like, oh, this is available. Look, this is a perfect house. And they bought it and realized what a mistake they made. Maybe they realized they weren't going to be able to afford it. And maybe in their crazy brains, they thought we could do this whole scenario and get out of this whole deal. And I think they got so wrapped up in the whole thing. And I think that you can tell the letters get more and more desperate. So I think the more desperate they got and figured out that it wasn't going to work is where the letters really got crazy and off the rails. And this guy went to the news and said it was like cancer and all this stuff. But I really believe that this was an inside job. I don't think this was the neighborhood because think about it. A new family moved into this house in 2019. They never got a letter. They claim they never got a letter.
Right.
And they're not being...
And the Broadduses never got a letter after they moved.
Right. So I believe this was an inside job, and I tie it back into the whole John List thing because he kind of went to the same craziness, but he killed his family instead of just trying to get out of a situation that they couldn't afford. And he did mention greed a bunch of times, too.
Yes.
So it was their own greed that got him in this situation.
Yep.
So I believe it was the Broadduses. I believe it was an inside job. That is my theory. That's what I'm going to go with. And I don't believe there's... That's what I believe. So, Cassie, you're up. What do you think?
I actually believe what you believe.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to take it even further. So, here's the thing. So, I believe she knew the neighborhood. She knew the things that happened in that house. She knew, that how old the house was. She knew how old the house was. She lived there. That's an iconic house. So she would know the history of the house.
Right.
She would know to, like, pinpoint certain dates, right? Like, how old was she?
She was in the 40s. So,
okay,
yeah.
so in 2014, she was in her 40s, which would put her about late 60s being born?
Late 60s.
Okay,
yeah.
so she references the 60s,
It's
right?
The 60s, right.
Okay. She also, a female, okay, well, let me get to this first. She also might have known about the Ode to the House letters because she lived in the neighborhood.
Right.
Like, her whole life. So, like, she would know, like, oh, people would write letters to the house.
Right.
Right? So, like, she would think, oh, well, like, writing a letter isn't that weird because people used to do this all the time.
Right.
And maybe if, like, we got caught or if something happened, we could pin it on this dude, right? Like, implicate him. Because I know he wrote these letters to this house. A female, I think the first 3 letters, or the first 2 letters were her. And the last 2 were him.
I think so, too, because you can see a distinct difference.
Yes.
In
because,
writing,
like,
as we
she
mentioned.
would probably write them eloquently, like, oh, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And he probably was like, fuck this. Like, I'm going
And
to
he was
fucking
pissed
kill
at this
you
point.
and blah, blah, blah.
He's like, I'm going to eat your children.
I
and
kind
then
of
poop on
wonder
your
what
face.
she went to college for, because if she went to college for English, then that pens the whole thing on her.
Yes. So I totally believe that. I went through all different kinds of theories on this, but that's where I'm always landing is a total inside job on this. And not only that, but they moved to a house down the street after they got out of this deal or they sold the house.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that that they wanted to get out of this house to get into this other house that was cheaper. I just think these people made a bad decision, approached it really bad, and then they couldn't get out of it, and then just got more desperate and desperate and desperate. So
Right.
it's weird that this all
I mean, there was this place called there was this other neighborhood near Westfield. I forget the name of it. Creshkill or somewhere like that.
Creshkill.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Where this happened, the same kind of thing happened, but it ended up being like a neighbor that was like pissed off that somebody moved into the neighborhood. So they might have heard about that and been like, oh, this happened here. We can write these letters, and people will be like, oh, whatever.
Copycat. And one of the things that's funny to me is that they compare this whole situation to the movie The Burbs, late 80s movie The Burbs, where this weird family moves into a neighborhood and they do everything in their power to get him out of that house. So it's very similar to the plot of The Burbs.
Oh, yeah, but it's the opposite.
But the Broadus is right. It's the opposite.
Right.
The Broaduses are the Klopex.
When we watched it, they made it very Burbs-ish. Like,
They did.
if you watch the show, the first, like, couple episodes was very, like, weird. Like, oh, they're the new weird neighbors that are coming in, and we're, like, the normal people, that live here. And it was very, like, oh, this is the Burbs, but backwards.
Right. So that's it, folks. So we both have the same theory,
Yeah.
which I believe is the most popular theory.
Especially
in
with
this
a
situation.
woman's DNA on the envelope.
Right.
It
all just leads to that.
It does. And they knew that I guarantee you they're going to end up getting caught. Like, there's going to be something that ends up
some evidence that comes out.
something.
That
Or
they
like
end up
if they
being
have
caught.
DNA, how are they not going to get DNA on these people.
I think that'll eventually come out. Maybe
You know?
they're holding off a little bit because the show came out or whatever. But I do
But
think
here's
that
the
they're
other
gonna
thing,
get caught.
though. Why would the show be able to be released now, and not when this was all happening? Why all of a sudden would the family allow them to make a show about this?
Well, they probably got a nice little check.
Well, yeah, but like, you know, it's weird. It's like, why would they allow, like back when this was all going on,
Right.
they didn't want anything to be talked about, but now all of a sudden it's okay. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Out of anything, if our theory is right, they're very greedy people.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel bad for the kids, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Your parents are scumbags.
Good job, parents.
Nice job, you losers.
Well, it is Westfield.
It is Westfield.
Just saying.
The wicked winds of Westfield. What they do to the fathers and parents there is nuts. So, folks, thank you for joining us tonight. I've had a good time. Been
Yes.
drinking some Lone Star beer, which is very good, the Texas beer. But it's been a very good time. We're going to be back in January with a very interesting topic and case that we're going to have. It's different from the last two cases. that we
Totally
did.
different. I mean, it's not really a case, right? It's kind of like
It's not a case. It's kind of a.
it's like a weird thing that happens.
It's kind of a weird thing that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Because it blew our mind when we first saw it, and we're going to do more research on it. It's going to even blow our minds even more, probably, in your minds as well. But thank you for tuning in, folks. If you have any theories on this case or what you think, please let us know. Message us. Email us at drmorningstarinvestigations@gmail.com. But thank you so much for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you next time. Mendez out.
Out on the top lanes, the glides are moving. Oh, looking for a new place to drive. You sit beside